Okay, so hopefully you can see this okay and it will edit out in the wash. Hi everyone and welcome to this brief talk and intro on podcasting for beginners. And I'm going to go through the what, why and how of podcasting for your business or also for passion as well. So there should be subtitles. They are auto-generated, so apologies if they are slightly out. And there's also content on the slides. So we'll probably be here for around 20 minutes. My aim is to give you a really clear introduction to what podcasting is and the steps to go through to get started. So firstly, a little bit about me. So this is my show, the Psyche Mental Wellbeing Podcast. It's available across pretty much all podcasting platforms that you might listen on. And I've been podcasting for coming up a year and a half now, and over 100 episodes. And we now release twice a week. We started off weekly. Now we have episodes out on Mondays and Wednesdays. And we're predominantly an interview format, and we've been listened to in around 21 countries. So this is all coming from my experience as a podcaster and what I've learned in all of that time. I have also been a guest on around about 12 other podcasts. So I've been on both sides. And if you're interested, there is a link to the show if you want to check it out. So, so today, what we're going to cover is starting from the basics of what is a podcast, what are the benefits to your business, the ways that you can get involved, launching your own show, and then top tips. First of all, what is a podcast? So it comes from iPod actually, and it's digital audio content that's portable. I like to talk about it kind of like a radio show, but it's pre-recorded and really, really flexible. It's a really exciting medium to get involved with. And so a bit of a history, podcast started in 2004, quite underground media, but they have steadily grown in popularity, and the projected growth is a 24% increase over the past year. So it's anticipated that it's going to continue to grow as an area. So why is it something to think about getting involved in? So podcasts are easy and low cost to create. I think often people can feel daunted about branching into something new and what's involved, but actually they are pretty straightforward, and hopefully today you'll get a sense of that. For the listener, for the consumer, it's really little effort to engage with. They can get great content. It's a great form of advertising yourself, your brand, your business. It's a great way as well of establishing credibility. And something we're going to talk about is that idea of that know, like, and trust. And actually, podcast audiences tend to be really loyal, about 20% more likely to engage with a brand on social media than other types of customers or audiences. As I said, this know, like, trust. Anyone who's been in marketing or kind of thought about that, and that is not my background, but that is something that this kind of content can be really great at. So it is about people knowing about you. So you're putting out your content, they can find you. If they listen, hopefully they like what they hear. And over time, with that consistent release of episodes, they build up that trust. And for me personally, that was one of my reasons for starting a podcast, was to kind of build up this know, like, and trust so that clients could get a sense of who I am before deciding if they want to work with me. And absolutely now it is a passion project. It's something I love, and on a personal and professional level, it's really great. Here's a little quote that I love. So Mark Moran, as a podcaster, said, "The medium of podcasting and the personal nature of it, the relationship you build with your listeners and the relationship they have with you, they could just be sitting there chuckling and listening. There's nothing like that." There's a sense of familiarity and community that's built that maybe traditional kind of print media or blogs maybe don't have. So in terms of the audience of podcasts, around 7.1 million people in the UK now listen to podcasts each week, which is about 11%. And it's higher in the US, about 50% of people in the US. Strangely, because it's predominantly audio, that YouTube is the most commonly used platform. Most people listen on their smartphone, and about 93% of listeners are active on social media. So hopefully, if they're engaged with your show, if they like you, they're going to talk about it on social media. A little bit of background of information, when and where people listen. So most people listen at home. This is 2018, so kind of pre-COVID time, but a lot of people at home, at work, commuting, in the car. Personally, I often listen in the car, sometimes when I'm walking. It's a really portable medium. People can be cooking and listening in a way that with the video, maybe they have to stop and really focus on that thing. So it's really, really accessible. In terms of the types of show, pretty much if you can think about it, there is probably a podcast about it. There are shows that are fiction, non-fiction, talk show formats, interviews, solo episodes, people sharing top tips, Q&As, guided meditations. There's so many different types of show and genres. Entertainment is up there as the most popular, but as you can see, all kinds of topics. Now, the current top 10, this is a few months out of date now, but as you can see, there's a real mix. So Joe Rogan's in there, the good, the bad, the rugby, we've got some sports, actually a few sports, the Peter Crouch podcast as well, Desert Island Discs, Off Menu with Ed Gamble, James Acaster, so some comedy. So probably more of the entertainment than purely business focused podcast. But as you can see, there is a real mix of shows. So moving on into how to get involved in podcasting. And these are in ascending order of engagement. So the first step is just listening to podcasts in your industry. We're going to talk about advertising, being a guest on other shows, making existing content you might already have available, and then launching your own show. So listening to podcasts, you may already be a podcast listener, but if not, why are they so valuable? It's a great way of storytelling. So listening to podcasts in your industry or just generally is a great way to absorb messages. It's that mix of education and entertainment, which can be so magical. It can help you stay up to date with developments in your industry and can really inspire you, not just in your business, but in your life. So if you take nothing else away from this, I would recommend that you check out some of the podcasts out there and have a listen. Now, advertising is something I personally don't do a huge amount just because of the nature of my show and a personal choice that having adverts running on my show doesn't feel like a good fit. But ad revenue on podcasts has grown from $69 million in 2015 to $514 million in 2019, and it's estimated to continue to grow. And so this could be running ads for other companies and businesses, but you need to have that level of following or engagement in order to access that. Personally, for me, I talk about what I do. Not a huge amount, but I will mention about coaching or if I have events going on. So it is a great way to advertise your own products and services. And then moving up, the next kind of level is about being a podcast guest. So perhaps you don't want to launch your own show, but you want to have the benefits of this medium. And so being a guest on another show can be a really great way of doing that. So why might this be a good idea for you? Firstly, it's less time commitment than running your own show. It gives you access to different audiences so you can reach more people. Establishing new connections is a great benefit. I've had some fantastic collaborations with people that I've met. People whose shows I've been on have been on my shows, so there's a crossover. And also, I've met some friends doing it as well. If you are wanting to establish yourself as a thought leader in your industry, then this can be a really great way of reaching lots and lots of different audiences, appearing on different shows within your industry, and sharing your message, whatever that is. And also it is fun. And I think that is a key message, hopefully you're picking up, is that I really love podcasting and really enjoy it. And I think it's a really fun, great thing to do. In terms of how to be a podcast guest, and I think this is where it's important to be really, really clear about what your topic is and what your message is. What is it that you want to talk about? Because knowing that and knowing the areas you want to be in is going to help you to decide which shows you want to pitch to and be on. It's also really great to have an offer or a call to action. Usually on a show, maybe not always, usually you will talk about your topic, have a discussion, maybe be interviewed, and there should be, I say should, on my show when I have guests on, I offer them an opportunity to share what is going on for them and where people can connect with them. And so it's good to have that thought. What is it that you are going to offer to people if they listen? How can they find you and further connect with you? The next step, obviously, is finding podcasts, finding shows to go on, to then pitch yourself to. And in the corner, being a guest, these are some of my top tips: Matchmaker.fm, radio guest list, and it's not on there, but I also would recommend podcastguests.com, pretty much as it sounds, as all great ways of finding shows and being able to submit yourself. And usually they'll ask for a brief bio, a little bit of a background. So I'd recommend maybe pulling something together of a few 100-word bio and kind of what your message is and your topics, so that you're ready to pitch yourself to shows. The next step is a way of creating a show or a series from something that you already have. So perhaps you have recorded workshops in pretty much the same way I'm recording this, and you already have that content. And if you've used Zoom, Zoom will have given you, if you find your recordings, an audio version as well as a video. So you don't need to split it or anything complicated. You can just find that audio version. So taking that content and turning it into a show is really low cost. You already have that content, and it makes it accessible for potential clients. It might not be that you want to give it all away, but there might be some that could be really valuable to share, or even having some that you make available to clients to listen to outside of sessions or after workshops. And with this, it's pretty straightforward. You have your existing audio file and you upload it to a website, a hosting site, or even just share those audio files with your audience. So for example, if you have a workshop and there's a follow-up, sharing that audio file. So then the big one, launching your own show. Why might this be a good idea for you? So really, you then have the creative control. You can spread your message. You are creating the content and curating your show. So you can choose which guests you want to invite on or welcome on and what that message is. You can also promote your products and your services. And because it's your show, there's not really any limit to how much you talk about what you've got going on. It's a great way to share tips, to share advice, again, kind of showing off your knowledge and establishing yourself as a thought leader in your industry. As I said at the beginning, it builds that know, like, and trust. It's a great way of collaborating, so finding other people to work with. I really love that idea of a crossover with other podcasters. And again, it's really fun. So how do you do it? We're going to talk through these steps: how you plan your pod, the creation and editing process, hosting, and then launching and promoting. So firstly, how? So this is really getting clear on what your show is about. What's your niche, if you have one? What are you going to call your show? And as you saw at the beginning, I'm very much of the what it says on the tin kind of school of naming. So Psyche is the name of my business. The podcast is about mental well-being, and it's a podcast, and that's our name. But you might have something a bit more creative or snazzy. What is the format? Is this going to be a solo show that's just you? Will you interview guests? Will you have panels? Will you mix it up? Is it fiction, non-fiction? All of those kind of things. And in thinking about that, Are you going to have a co-host? Are there going to be two of you all of the time running it or more? Will you have guests? Who might they be? What kind of people would you like to have on? Then there's thinking about the cover art. Again, mine is pretty simple, but it's something in the works to update. But what kind of image are you going for? Having a bit of an intro. So this is a really succinct way of saying kind of who you are, who the show is, and what you are about, that kind of key message or mission. So having a think about that. Is it completely aligned to your business, or is it a particular area of it that you are looking at? And then thinking about the kit and the technical stuff. And let's talk about that a little bit now. To be honest, my advice, just recording on a laptop, if it's just you for starting out, I wouldn't invest in a huge amount of fancy kit. I didn't invest until I was a few months in, and even then, not massively fancy kit, because actually the sound quality comes out pretty well. I use Zoom to record, and we'll talk about editing in just a moment, but really a pretty good microphone, headphones, and hopefully if you're interviewing people, they will have the same. You really don't need to invest in really fancy stuff when you're starting out, and I haven't yet. And to be honest, I'm happy with I've got a Rode mic. It cost me about £150, and I'm happy with that. The next step is actually creating it. So recording the audio, whether that is you just talking, as we're doing now. Again, you can use Zoom. I also use a program called Squadcast to record, and there are other audio recording platforms. Again, you might, subtitles are off. You may also want to think the subtitles were off because the internet, they're back. So if you're wondering what's annoying, it was the internet. You also then want to think about transitions. So I have some music tracks to signal the movement from the intro into me talking a little bit to the interview to the end with my call to action. And so actually that's part of that format, but editing that all together, and how do you want to mark those transitions? And then some people may just record their audio and go. I personally do a listen through edit, and I use Audacity, which is my top tip. It's a free program. I find it really straightforward to use, but there are YouTube tutorials for it. I know some people use GarageBand, so that is another option. So really thinking about how you're going to record the audio and then how you're going to piece it together. The next step is how you get that show out there. And so you need a hosting platform. So my top tip is Anchor. That's who I use. They are owned by Spotify and they're a free platform. There's also places like Buzzsprout. There are, to be honest, lots, Podbean, etc. I, to be honest, starting out would recommend going free with Anchor, really just to test out if it's for you and what you think. But I also really rate Anchor. It's simple and it's straightforward. But do a little bit of research for you and what's important for you. But choose that platform, and then it should be quite straightforward to create a show, and there'll be an option to upload episodes, and you can either release them straight away or schedule them in advance. And I would recommend scheduling, because consistency really is key for a successful podcast. So if you are releasing weekly, making sure that you do release weekly. And I have a set time when my episodes come out, so I upload them and schedule them in advance. There's also an option to put show notes, so really summarizing what was talked about, if you've mentioned anything that you want to direct people to. And also it's really nice if you've got guests to share their social media and their website, and also your own, so that people can find it more. Now, sometimes on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, hyperlinks don't come through, but personally, I also upload to my website, and the show notes are there and working. And your show notes will probably pull through to somewhere like Listen Notes, so they'll be there as well. On your hosting platform, there'll be options to distribute, usually under settings. I know they are for Anchor, and I just choose auto to go to everywhere. So it goes through to Apple, Spotify, Google, which are the big ones, but also several other different listening platforms. So hosting really, it's one place you upload your podcast, it's where it lives, and from there it gets shared everywhere where people listen. You can also host separately on a website. So for example, I have a Squarespace website. My podcast also lives there. And there is a way to set up an RSS feed and distribute from there, but it's an extra step. So I would recommend going for a hosting site that does it for you. And the next thing is launching and promoting. And to be honest, when I released my show, I just went for it. Some people will suggest that you have a bank of shows and that you build up that promotion and really aim for that new and noteworthy on Apple Podcasts. So if you can have quite a good listenership when you come out so that they're seeing that you are picking up their audience, that can be a great way to promote your show. It is not something that I achieved because I didn't really plan out my launch. I just went for it. But think about how you're going to promote, not just launching, but each episode. Are you going to share on social media? What's that going to look like? And also on some platforms, I know this is definitely an anchor feature, you can create a little teaser trailer. So thinking about what you want to include in that. A few final top tips. Beginning of the week is the best time to publish, apparently. More likely to be listened to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. As I said, that content consistency, they are key. So rather than getting hung up on how long your show is, which is something that a lot of people will talk about, really focus on creating great quality content. I really believe that if it is good stuff and engaging, then little things like audio not being so great all the time and anything really like that, if it is good and it's if it's long, I've had some really long episodes. The longest, there is a podcast, a history podcast that is 6 hours long each episode, and people listen to it. If it is good stuff that people find interesting, then they will listen to it. So really focus on that rather than any other kind of metrics. And speaking of, it takes time to build up a podcast following. It is not a get rich quick scheme. It is not, to be honest, the numbers, the demographics, not the demographics, the metrics are interesting to look at, but I wouldn't put a huge amount of stock in that. Again, personally, my approach is I would rather have a smaller audience that is really engaged, and to be honest, just reach one person and that will be success for my show. So kind of thinking about what that success looks like for you, but not getting too hung up on numbers. And then collaborate. Collaboration is a great way to grow your show and to widen your audience. So I absolutely would recommend doing that in some way. So my top takeaways: be a guest. It is such an easy way in, a great way to access new audiences, and a great way to start and just really try it out. If you launch your show, you can control that content and really build that know, like, trust. And if nothing else, listen to shows in your industry. Keep learning, be inspired. Hopefully this has kind of given you all of the basics of kind of what podcasting is, how to get involved, some ideas of how to move forward. But if you still have questions, I've got a couple of offers on that you may be interested in. So I am launching a podcast mentorship program. This is a 4-week group program and the numbers are limited to 6. And this is really to take you from your idea to your launch. So really thinking about your message, your presence, your interviewing skills, possibly if you're doing that, your name, your niche, how it fits into your strategy, and getting a bit clearer on the technical side and all those different aspects. So it is some group sessions and then workbooks to work through and tasks to do to really get you clear on what you're doing and take those steps towards launching. So that is going to be running in May. So you can visit our website to find out more. And if you're not really interested in a group program and you'd much rather have a personalized one-to-one session to plan out those steps and a bit of tech support around the training and hosting and launching your show, there's not ongoing editing or support like that. It's really just showing you the basics to get you started and get you off the ground. It's a 2-hour session. Depending on whether you have other members of your team, we can do personalized offers, but that is another offer that we have if you really want to get up and running and get started with your own show. Just to finish, here are a couple of business podcasts to check out. I'm going to cut that off and we don't have any questions. So that's everything that I've got to talk about today. I think that's everything that I have to talk about today. I hope that has answered your questions about getting started, giving you a bit more confidence in being a podcaster. And my final takeaway is that it may be something new. It may feel like it's a lot of work and quite daunting, but actually it's not. It's quite straightforward. And as I've said a few times, I really want to just emphasize at the end, it is a lot of fun. It's really, really enjoyable. And I personally have met so many fantastic people podcasting. It has opened up new opportunities for me, not just professionally, but in my personal life. I took up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu after a conversation with one guest. But also on a personal level, I feel like I have learned a lot as well through the conversations. It's improved my public speaking. In so many ways, it has been beneficial, and now is a massive part of my life. So I definitely would recommend having a go, test the water by being a guest, but just don't be put off by fear of doing something which seems like a big thing. It is not as scary or complicated as it may seem. And so just to whiz back to the beginning, if you want to check out my show, here is the link. I hope you found this useful. Feel free to drop me an email. I will just give you my email. Hannah, SHANNAHS @psyche, spelled exactly as you see on the screen, .co.uk. If you wanted to book a one-to-one session, or you just had a couple of other questions, I always love talking about podcasting. That's everything. Sorry, I said about 20 minutes. It's going on about 30, but hopefully you found this useful. And speak to you soon.